The Center for Democratic Development, CDD-Ghana, is worried about the current errors that have characterized the Electoral Commission's reporting on the figures from the ongoing limited voter registration exercise. The CSO says something must change about that to bolster confidence of the electorate in the process and the 2024 general elections. This is coming on the back of the Commission admitting to another error in the ongoing limited voter registration exercise. At the end of day 11 of the limited registration exercise, the EC figures suggest 459,291 had been registered, but 11 hours after posting the figures, the EC admitted errors, saying Greater Accra was wrongly repeated for Upper East on the slide on challenge cases earlier published. But these mistakes by the EC didn't start today. You recall that in the computation of the final results for the 2020 elections, there was a mistake in the final numbers for one of the candidates. Our research desk has been combing through the data, and a member of the desk, Isaac Kofi, joins me in studio with more on this. Kofi, what more do we know?
Well, let's start from 2020 because that's mostly setting the precedent for this whole conversation, because in 2020 such transpositional error occurred, and it occurred during the time that the EC boss herself was announcing or declaring the results. I mean, she made the error and they had to come back to correct it. Now, instead of a total vote of 13, total valid vote of 13.11 million votes, she mentioned 13.43 million. And the difference then was more than 300,000 valid votes cast. Although she said that it does not change the percentages for that declaration process, and for you to make such an error, we all thought that EC will learn a big lesson from what happened in 2020 election. But it seems that that same transpositional error we are experiencing even in the registration of voters. So,
and that's almost 4 years on from that particular exercise.
4 years on, EC should learn some lesson from the mistake they made in 2020, which almost marked how credible the elections were. We had a lot of people complaining about that error. Now, they came back to, correct this. Now, let's look at the errors that EC is making in putting out the registered voters. Now, we are looking at the first error that they made. Now, this first error that EC made was according to the infographics they put out. So, according to them, they have the actual figures, but the team possibly working on the infographics made these transpositional errors. So, day one, there was no mistake in terms of the total number of registered votes. I mean, the EC quoted 16,517, and that same figure was there if you do the summation according to the infographics they put out. Now, day two, instead of 19,000, there was 25,000. Day three, instead of 48,000, there was 43,000. Day four, instead of 58,000, there was 57,000.
No, instead of 57,
there was 58. Now, in the green, that's what the actual value you get when you do the tabulation.
Okay.
In the red is the errors made by the EC. And if you do the computation, you see the staggering difference between these numbers. Now, let's look at this one that people are saying this is very, very elementary, and EC shouldn't be making such errors.
Okay.
This is the challenged, process, the total number. In terms of the regional distribution, if you look at these two bar charts, definitely, just by looking at it, you see a stark difference.
Yeah.
But in terms of the labeling of these infographics, you see 981 for the Ashanti region, and that same 981
for the Greater Accra.
Greater Accra region, and the same 981 for the Upper East region. Just by looking at the data, you will see that this is a transpositional error, and that is not the actual thing. And saying that it's been 4 years since you made that error in the declaration, and it should be a learning curve for the EC. But they've gone ahead to correct this, and you can see that instead of the 149 that was supposed to be recorded for the Upper East region, they recorded 981. So that error has been corrected. But the key question is, it's been 4 years. Why has it taken you so long to correct such elementary errors.
All right. Thank you, Kofi. However, Deputy Chair of the Commission in charge of Corporate Services, Dr. Bosman Asare, says, in as much as the EC is taking some steps to ensure the cause of the error is not repeated, these errors are not major.
Well, you can see the real figures were correct, but the disaggregation of the various days, so I don't see this as anything which is so major for people to make a beef about. The bigger picture, the total registered at the time, about 143 was also captured correctly.
Well, let's bring in the CDD, which has been calling on the EC to improve error reporting systems to avoid these avoidable mistakes. We're joined by the Programs Officer of the Center for Democratic Development, CDD-Ghana, Vera Abena-Addo, on Zoom. Now, Vera, are these errors a big deal that we must be worried about?
Good evening to you. Yes, this should be a big deal for us, especially where EC is an institution that deals with numbers. And we also have our system, which is simple majority with a parliamentary. It means that even just one vote or one error at a polling station will make significant difference at a polling station or a constituency. So it's really a big deal. And I must commend your research team for the work that you've done already. And it's not just about the past 4 years. Over the years, when an error occurs at the polling station, it's at the discretion of the presiding officer to decide what to do, either to cancel or to use a new sheet. And so for CDD, what we are calling on the Electoral Commission is that can we have standard? Can we standardize the system such that when error occurs at the polling station or a registration center, what's the procedure for correcting such error, which is acceptable for all? Otherwise, we will just leave it to the discretion of officers to do whatever they are supposed to do. If it becomes way too many, then you allow suspicions and also doubts among the institution. Already the Electoral Commission is suffering a lot of mistrust. So it's important that these errors are treated with some level of caution and seriousness and not just trivialize it.
But Vera, someone would say it didn't change the total number that they had there. I mean, shouldn't the total number be the issue than maybe the graphical representation of it?
At what point did we realize that it didn't change the numbers? And maybe by the time we realized that it didn't change the total numbers or the percentage, a lot of chaos would have been done, a lot of violence or tension. And so it's important that we look at these errors again. I agree that it's an institution, and when humans run such institution, there will be some errors. But when it's more regular, it's worrying, and it's important for us to also look at these errors and not just trivialize it. I think we need a standard, and some of these errors can be very genuine. Just as all of us, sometimes we make mistakes in the work that we do. And so when it happens, what's the procedure? What's the standard that we need to correct such errors? And we have been calling the EC to ensure that when an error occurs, can we all agree that this is the procedure, that the presiding officer takes a new pink sheet and sign against it, or we take a new, there's a form and attach the error sheet up to the corrected one so that everybody accepts it, because these are numbers issues. And so if you are dealing with numbers, then you have to be a little bit careful. You have your quality assurance. And it's worrying that the EC is not able to detect this error until a third party draws their attention to it. We are hoping that their internal systems and quality assurance will be strengthened such that it wouldn't happen again. We are really hoping that this doesn't happen again.
Vera, I'm grateful to you for joining us. Vera Addo is the Programs Manager for CDD Ghana.